Good morning and welcome to today's edition of Empowerment Hour. I'm Denise Oliver. I'd like to say I'm here at Calon FM. Sadly, we're still not back in the studio. One day we will be. So I'm back on the Zoom platform. I'm sure there are many other recording platforms available. And today I've got a wonderful woman I absolutely adore, all the way from the northeast of England, because that's what you can do when you don't have to be live in the studio. You can invite people from anywhere to join you and make a radio show. So my guest today is Theresa Finnigan. Good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning, Denise, and I'm very well, thank you. And thank you for such a lovely introduction.
Whereabouts in the northeast are you?
I live in Northumberland, so I live near the market town of Hexham in Northumberland.
I've only been to Northumberland once for a day with our lovely friend Sharon, who lives in Middlesbrough, and I went to Corbridge, and it's gorgeous. It's just gorgeous.
The next village along to me is Corbridge. Yeah.
Really? Oh,
yeah.
Well, next time I go, we're going to give you a shout. Yes, come and have afternoon tea with us, or whatever it was we did. I forget exactly now. And Northumberland is one of those areas that I really would love to explore. It's just got, you see the beaches on the telly and they're like, there's no one on them. Those are great beaches for COVID time because there's no one on them. So do you choose to holiday in your area ever? Would you have any recommendations for people, places to visit?
Northumberland as a whole is incredibly beautiful. You're right, you can go up the coast and go to Alnwick and go to Alnwick Castle. And the Alnwick Gardens are amazing. They filmed some of Harry Potter there, so Alnwick is an awesome place to visit. The beaches are phenomenal. You can go up to Druridge Bay and Bamborough, but then you can come more further inland and be in the Cheviot Hills. So you truly have a smorgasbord. You can choose whatever you prefer. So whatever floats your boat, you can find it probably in Northumberland.
Is there a food that Northumberland is famous for? I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Is there like a dessert or a pie or something like that?
Well, they have a Cumberland sausage.
Yeah.
So I suppose the other food, and I had a conversation about this yesterday. I was trying to describe it to somebody, and it isn't necessarily a Northumberland, it's a Tyne and Wear northeast thing, is a Greg's stotty. And it's a stotty is it's kind of like a very big bread bun and I described it yesterday as being like an arrow, and I didn't mean that it tastes like chocolate. I mean it's got very big aerated holes in the bread. So you look at it and it kind of looks heavy, but it's when you cut through it, it's beautiful. So
you eat it.
Yes, you eat it, and it's
lovely. No, how do you do it? Do you add butter to it, jam? How do you have it?
Usually just as a sandwich, so like ham and salad or whatever you like to put into a sandwich. You would have it in a stotty. So yes, next time I'm coming down to Chester, I will bring you some Greg's stotties. I've got a friend who lives in London, and every time he comes back to the northeast, he has orders from people to bring him stotties, and he takes them back to London. There are Greg's all over the country, but I think they only make them in the northeast stores. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Cool. I think one other place I'd like to visit is Lindisfarne. That must be close to you.
Holy Island is a very magical place. Beware of the tides. Check your tide crossing before you drive over. People get stranded crossing over the causeway the locals call it Holy Island, and it is Lindisfarne, but it gets referred to as Holy Island, and that would be a great place to be during COVID-19. There's not very many people live on the island. They have some amazing beaches, and it's a very spiritual place as well. So there's a real sense of peace and space and magic. You have to go to experience it. but it's a really, really stunning place. And of course, if you go there for the day, then you're in Berwick, so you're right on the Scottish borders. So you go across the border and go to Berwick. So
yeah, it sounds like it's on my wish list, most definitely. It's one of those things I want to do before too long, really. So we've mentioned COVID, and I know that you have had quite a journey with this, and we're going to take a break now, and we'll come back and find out all about what's been going on for you with your little jaunt with COVID-19, and also how the tools of access have influenced your life, and in particular this bout within the COVID-19 coronavirus stage that we're on. So we'll take a break. Hi there, welcome back. You're listening to Empowerment Hour with myself, Denise Oliver, and my lovely, lovely guest, Theresa Finnigan. So before we had our break for some music, we mentioned COVID, and you have a little something to share with us about this. So I'm quite amazed at what you've been through. So you start at the beginning and tell us what happened for you.
Well, I had been traveling a lot at the beginning of the year. I went to Rome, and then I went to Brazil, and then I came back and I went to London, and then I went to Dublin. And by the time I got to Dublin, there was a lot of COVID talk, and there was very much a sense of fear amongst people. I recall walking through Dublin airport, and there were posters everywhere and people handing out information and hand sanitizing stations. And I was like, interesting. All these people presume that they're going to get COVID-19. So I came back from an advanced body class with Mr. Gary Douglas, who's the founder of Access Consciousness. And I came back to the Northeast with a sore throat and a cough. So I didn't really think too much about it. It was just my body changing, and I'd been asking for a lot of things to change and to have the awareness of where my life was going and what it was that I was willing to have different in my life. So, and I know that sometimes when I ask those kind of questions, my body will change slightly. So I wasn't too concerned that I had a sore throat. However, about 5 days later, I felt really, really sick. And even though I incorporate the tools of access in everything I do, you still, if your body demands it, you go and see a doctor. Like, do not use the tools and don't seek medical advice. So I called my doctor, who refused to come and see me because I'd been to Dublin, and said, you may have COVID-19. And they sent an ambulance to the house. So quite a number of hours later, after being trapped by two amazing paramedics who were dressed up like they were on one of these scary horror films, you know, where they're like, they come in and they're dressed from head to foot in white and like they're all gloved up. They said, you've got a chest infection. You don't have COVID. Get your doctor to come and give you some antibiotics. So fast forward 2 weeks from there, and I was really, really sick. I could barely breathe. I couldn't walk up the stairs, was almost a physical impossibility. I couldn't taste anything. I couldn't eat anything. I couldn't smell anything. My body was very sick. And I'd phoned the doctors back and I'd asked to see them. And they'd said, you've had antibiotics. You'll be fine. It's just your body recovering. And I was like, is this true, buddy? And every time I asked, I got a no, but the medical people were telling me I was fine, so deal with it. Then my husband requires to go into hospital for an operation, and we had a phone call from the hospital to say they were cancelling his pre-op. And the lady who phoned me, I couldn't speak like I am now. It was very hard to get a word out. In fact, when I was communicating with my husband and my kids in the house, I was texting them rather than speaking because it was so painful to speak. So I'm like croaking down the phone at this poor nurse, and very breathless. And she basically insisted that she send an ambulance for me. And I'm like, it's not required, I'm fine. So again, fast forward 2 or 3 hours, and I was being whisked into intensive care in the hospital. And the hospital, I was transferred to a hospital at Cramlington, which is a specialist hospital here in the Northeast. And I was one of their first COVID-19 patients. They whisked me into intensive care and prepared all this stuff to tell me that they were going to put me in an induced coma. They told me that they didn't understand how I was still walking and talking, even though I was struggling with it, because my lungs were so badly infected. Whatever I'd had, the corona, had turned into double pneumonia. And if I hadn't gone in when I went in, I would have died. And I'm really not intending to be blasé, but I still, when I tell people, they're like, oh my God. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I don't really have an answer to tell anybody why I wasn't too concerned, but I think my body just knew what it was doing. And yes, it required the extra help, and it came from a very, I didn't expect my husband's doctors to send an ambulance for me. But there I ended up in intensive care, where I spent 5 days hooked up to many, many machines. And on the weekend, it was the weekend when it was Mother's Day. So the 20th of March is my twins' birthday. And then the Mother's Day was the Sunday. And during the night of the 20th of March, so the early hours of the 20th, they came in and said that they were going to put me into the induced coma. I wasn't responding to the medication. I was on 2 different types of antibiotics. I was having support to breathe. I had the oxygen and everything. And I said, you are not putting me in a coma until I wish my kids happy birthday, which looking back is probably very silly. But I was like, you are not putting me into a coma.
So can we stop it there, because we're going to need to take a break,
Okay, cool.
and then come back and find out. It's quite a cliffhanger, this, isn't it? Was she or wasn't she put into a coma? Did she get to wish her children a happy birthday? So let's just take a break now, and we'll come back and find. I can't wait. Hi there, welcome back. So we left you on a cliffhanger. So Theresa Finnigan, up there in the Northeast, you've been admitted, query COVID-19, but definitely double pneumonia, to an intensive care unit. Did you or did you not get put into a coma? Did you or did you not wish your twins a happy birthday?
I didn't. So I didn't.
Oh.
I didn't get put into a coma, and I did wish my twins a happy birthday. During that night, it was a very long night, and they kept coming in and they were like, if you get any sicker, we're not going to listen to your wishes. You have to be put into a coma. And all of these huge machines were literally inches from my head, waiting to be plugged in and knock me out and do whatever they do when they put you into an induced coma. And I really then chose that this wasn't happening to me. My children, as any parent knows, your children are your world. And there was no way that I was not going to speak to them on their birthday. And it's interesting, actually, because I was never intending to be with them on their birthday anyway, because had I not been sick, I would have been at Certified Facilitators, which should have been in Rome, but then ended up online because of the COVID thing. But I had originally planned to be away from them anyway, but there's a difference between choosing to be away and ringing them and wishing them happy birthday, and then being put in a coma and not being able to speak to them at all. So during that night, there were a few things that went through my mind, and Francesca Fiorentini, who's the worldwide coordinator for Access Consciousness, had messaged me And she told me to tap into the energy of everybody who was contributing to my body across the world. And at this time, I didn't actually know that there were people all over the world that were contributing. And since found out that during the certified facilitator class, everybody was contributing to me. So whilst I was in bed, I tapped into that energy, and I was using one of the basic mantra of Access Consciousness, which is all of life comes to us with ease and joy and glory. And in my head, I kept thinking, if I can say that before I cough again, I'll be alive. I'll be okay. I'll be fine. And sometimes the coughs were so frequently, it was, oh, life comes through with ease and joy and glory, because I couldn't, like, I was going to breathe again. But I said it all night long, and asking my body to receive the gift of the contribution from everybody across the world. What did my body know? And what was I aware of? And asking lots and lots of questions. And at 6 o'clock in the morning, my daughter FaceTimed me, and I wished her happy birthday. And when her lazy brother got out of bed at lunchtime, I wished him happy birthday. So I didn't get put into the coma. And to be honest, it was interesting, the perspective that was coming from the nurses and the doctors. They couldn't understand how my body was changing and how I was still there. And they kept saying it to me all the time, that I was a medical anomaly. As sick as I was, I shouldn't be able to still be aware and awake and dealing with them and communicating with them. And my body changed so rapidly. So on the Sunday, which was Mother's Day, which was 2 days later, I was transferred back to a room, because I was still being isolated, but I was in a room on my own and out of intensive care. And 3-4 days later, I got to come home. So it was a bit of a roller coaster, and it didn't really end there, but it's been very interesting.
So you were being treated as though you did have COVID-19, but it's not actually been proven, has it?
No, which is the really strange thing. Is I had 3, because the original paramedics that came out said they didn't do a test. They asked me a lot of questions, and they just, based on the questions, they decided I didn't have COVID-19. While I was in hospital, they did 3 tests, and each test came back negative. And the nursing staff kept saying, you're sicker than the patients who have COVID-19. We don't understand why your test is coming back negative. As far as we're concerned, you have it. And then they'd said what was probably most likely is that I'd had it when the first ambulance people had come out and decided that I didn't, and that what the test would pick up for, because it wasn't a test to see if you've had it, it's a test to see if you have it. And because I'd had it and it had left me with the double pneumonia, it wasn't showing up on their tests. So as far as they were concerned, they said they think I'd had it, but they couldn't prove it. But 2 weeks ago, I had to go to a post-COVID-19 clinic, where they were asking me, I had to see 3 separate doctors, where they asked me a multitude of questions about the after effects. And they can't believe how quickly I've regenerated my body, how my enthusiasm for life. The questions were all very heavy, and it was, are you not sleeping? Are you having nightmares? Are you depressed? Do you have suicidal thoughts? Do you have a reason to get up in the morning? And I was like, what? They asked me if I was sleeping, and I was like, no. And they were like, oh, okay. And they started writing notes, and I said, why would I sleep? I almost died, and I've got too much to live for now. I'm so excited, and I'm so enthusiastic about everything I want to create and everywhere I want to go, and what the future holds for me. I'm too excited to sleep because my brain won't shut off. And they were like, oh, you're very different. Yeah.
I love it. It's great. We're going to take another break, and what I'd like to come back and talk to you about next is actually where you started with Access. So obviously, very clear that using the tools that you have done during the time that you were admitted and since, you are like shaking up the medical world. They don't know what to do with you. That's great, really cool, love that. But I'd love to find out more about where you got started, how you found out about it. Hi there, welcome back. This is Empowerment Hour. I'm Denise Oliver, and my guest today is Theresa Finnigan. And we've had a bit of a journey with something that may have been COVID-19, but it was never proven, and pneumonia, which was, and you're been in intensive care. What I'd like to do is actually ask you about where you started with Access. How did you find it? What were you doing at the time?
Oh my goodness. Well, as well as Access, I teach Reiki, and I was at a training course for the master teacher level of Sakim Reiki. And during the lunchtime of the course, one of the other participants was talking about this thing called Access bars. And she said she'd done it. She didn't like it. It was rubbish. This person just put their fingers on my head, and it was like, really, it was awful. And my body was like, more, tell me more. And I said, oh, what's that you're talking about? I've never heard of that before. And she was like, oh, don't bother. And my body was like, bother, please go and search for it. So I like typed the name into my phone because she was so dismissive. She didn't want to speak about it anymore. And I knew I would forget because I'm like, got a hole in my brain. So I typed it down, and I went home and I Googled Access Consciousness. And here in Northumberland, where I live, there was nobody that was teaching it. There was nobody really offering bar sessions or anything like that. So I'd rang a couple of people, but they were all many miles away. And I kind of thought, okay, well, whatever, I'll get it one day if I'm meant to have it. And then one day I went onto Facebook, and there was a post on my wall from a lady who I didn't know, so I don't know how she was on my wall, saying that she was coming up to Barden Mill in Northumberland to do a Access Bars class. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. It's just up the road from me. So I rang her and I booked into this Access Bars class. And I'd never had my bars run, didn't know what on earth I was letting myself in for. Before the class, she sent me a message with the Access clearing statement and told me to learn it. Well, as I've said, I've got a hole in my brain. So I'm looking at these words that mean absolutely nothing, that don't make sense, and thinking, how on earth am I going to remember pop, 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 pop? So I was very, very struggling. So I went along to my class, and it was very different. There was only me there. And the lady that was teaching me was preparing for a Tantra festival. I've since learned it was not the way an Access Bars class should be facilitated. But even though it was different, I knew there was something in it for me. And at that time, I didn't know what. And one of the things that this lady asked me was, if you could get anything out of today, what would you get out of it? And I asked that I wanted to lose weight and I wanted to have a successful business. They were the two things that I said to her. And she had asked me some questions around my points of view about business creation and my body. And I left the day feeling amazing, thinking, well, I've got another tool to add to my holistic practice. I can run people's bars now. I'm a practitioner. How does it get any better than that? And that was that. And about 3 weeks after my class, I honestly don't recall feeling life-changing or anything like that. It felt good. It was nice. And I had another tool. And that was kind of where my mind was going. About 3 weeks after my class, I had a phone call from somebody offering me a holistic therapy practice. She'd been using it as a reflexology, not as an acupuncture center. She retired and she asked me if I would like to take over. And I jumped at the chance. So at this time, it was almost as well, it was the 8th of December. So it was just before Christmas. And I got busy. The therapy practice needed a lot of work done to it. I'm a mum of 4 children. It was busy running up to Christmas. And I didn't even give access bars another thought. I didn't think, oh, I've got this business because I had my bars run. I changed something in my world. Didn't think anything about access consciousness. And then as we got into the January, I realized that there was a lot of food in my kitchen cupboards. I'm one of those crazy people that buy like the shops are going to be shut forever. And I used to have like chocolate mountains in my kitchen cupboards because it's Christmas and you never know who might come and I've got to have something there to feed them, which is an insane point of view, which I don't function from anymore, but I did at the time. And normally I would be the one that ended up eating the EEC chocolate mountain. And I didn't. And my clothes were starting to get bigger. And I realized that I was creating this practice to open, and I had no clients. I didn't have a database of clients. I'd been a mobile therapist. I would just go to people's houses, and it was very sporadic. And I was taking this huge leap forward with my business with no cognitive sense of where it was going to go, but I knew it was the right thing to do. And I was losing weight. And I suddenly thought, I wonder if this has got anything to do with that class that I went to in November.
I wonder as well. It's like, interesting that, isn't it? So it may have not have been the way that Access prefer classes to be taught, but something shifted in your universe when you did it. How does it get any better than that? That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. We are going to take another break now and we'll be back with you shortly. Hi there, welcome back. So my guest is Theresa Finnigan and we're on quite a journey with you. And talking of journeys, I know that with Access now, you travel a lot. How do you combine being a mum, because you're a very dedicated mum, a wife, a business, all the travel, all the journeying? How do you do all of that?
Well, after I had my epiphany that it was the bars, having my bars on actually had changed something in my world, I did another 2 classes. I became a bars facilitator. And I started to choose and use the tools that Access Consciousness provide. I actually read the manual after my 3rd class. I didn't read it after the first one. I didn't read it after the second one. And after the 3rd, when I became a practitioner, I thought maybe I should read it. So I actually read it. And when you read it, and you then get even more from it, believe it or not. So I started to really use the tools. And it was after my 3rd class, I realized that I really desired to choose more. And I chose to take a foundation class. And the foundation is a 4-day class. And the class, I chose to take it with Fiona Cutts, who's going to be a guest on your show soon, I believe. So I took this class with Fiona and I drove to Sale in Manchester for this class. and I had to be gone for 5 days. And I'd never been away from home before and left the kids overnight. I'd never left them for 5 days. And it took a lot of courage and a lot of questions and a lot of letting go of control to be able to do that. So whereas I'd ruled the house and like had everything where I knew things were and I did the shopping, I literally handed the reins over to my husband, who loved it. And I must say, he thrives on it. He handles the house amazingly well. So, and the children. So I went away to the class in Manchester, and that really expedited my journey. After that, I just kept asking and choosing for more and more and more. And I went away again in the November, and I did a 3-day body class, and I did a Right Body for You class. And then the following year, I got asked to go to Paris to assist at Global Foundation. And my willingness to contribute, I think, really assisted with that. I was willing to go and to put posters up and put massage tables up and to just be there, because I really desired to have so much more and to absorb all of the information and all of the knowledge that everybody had. And in doing that, I use those tools and that knowledge at home. So even though since then, like now, like I said, at the beginning of this year, I went to Rome, then to Brazil, then to Dublin, and that was all within 7 weeks. I did all of that. Now going away at the drop of a hat doesn't faze me at all. And the children, they're very, very well adjusted. But one of the key things that I realized is that when I travel, I never withdraw my energy away from the home. So I always stay connected. And yes, you can stay physically connected with the phone, with text, with FaceTime. Technology is amazing and it really assists. But my actual energy, I still stay tapped into the energy of the home. If there's something going on, I'll get a ping in my universe and I'll ring and I'll say, "What's up? How are you?" And they'll go, "Oh, like, you know, Helena's just fell over and hurt her knee in the garden," or something like that. So I stay connected to them. And I ask a lot of questions. So my family are so incredibly supportive, and using all of the tools. It's funny actually, because my husband and my children don't run bars, and they've never been, well, Helena came to an Access Bars class with me once as a stand-in model. She was a head for somebody to practice on, but the family don't do access in inverted commas the way that I use the tools. And then it's so funny when you actually hear them, and one of them will come out with something, go, "Oh, how's it get any better than that?" Or, "What else is possible, Mum?" So they do receive the tools and they do use them. I recall one day I was out with my son in the car, and I ran into the corner shop, and I jumped back in the car and I said, "Oh, I could really do with a bottle of wine." And he said, "And who does that belong to, Mum?" And I realized that on the opposite corner, there was a pub, and it was tea time on a Friday, and it was full of people drinking. And I was like, "Oh, okay, thank you, Sean." So yeah, they use the tools as well, but not as not in such a conscious way that I do.
You have 4 children, don't you, as well? So not as though you're going away and leaving your husband with one. No, he has 4, and you have twins. So they're the youngest, aren't they?
Yes, they are. I don't really leave my husband with 4 children, because 2 of them are grown up, although often the grown-up ones require just as much attention as the 2 younger ones, who turned 12 while I was in hospital. But 2 of my sons, one of my older ones and my son who's half of the set of twins, they're both autistic as well. And using some of the speciality tools as well as the basic tools in Access Consciousness has totally expanded their world and my ability to parent and to be present with them.
Yeah, cool. I get that we could do a whole other show on that. So, but we do need to take a break right now. And then we're into our very final session. So in that session, I'd love you to share with us how we can contact you, how we can be in touch with you. And yeah, and then what I'd like to end with as well is what your favourite tool of access is. Hi there, this is our final session for today. You're listening to Empowerment Hour here at Calon FM, and please stay safe, continue to follow the guidelines, however that works for you, and we will be back in the studio. I get that it'll be sometime, maybe September time, but we'll see. You're in Wales, I'm here in Chester. Wales has got slightly different rules to Chester, which is in England. So let's see how it goes. But for now, I am loving doing these Zooms over this platform where we can do this recording. And then the wonderful Amy Hughes, the editor in chief at Calon, she then sorts it all out and makes it radio worthy, which I have no idea what she does and how she does that. So final session, a massive thank you to the lovely Theresa Finnigan, who thank you so much for giving up your time this morning and doing this recording with me. So I said we'd let everyone know where you're based, how they can get in touch with you. So let's have that first.
Well, I'm a child of the universe. I'm everywhere. Where would you like me to be?
I love it.
I can be found in many places. If you wish to see me in person, I have a holistic therapy centre called Crystal Cottage, which is actually based in Gateshead. It's not in Northumberland because I live on the border. So I've got a beautiful little practice where I teach from and do treatments and consultations from there. And then other than that, I can be found traveling the world. I can be found online a lot. So you can find me through the Access Consciousness webpage. You can find me on Facebook, and I also have a Facebook page called Theresa Finnigan too. So sessions, classes, what I'm up to, it's all there. So you can find me through either of those modalities too.
And traveling the world when we can again.
When I can again. And that's like, even at my little therapy center as well, I haven't seen anybody there since February because I came back at the beginning of March and then the world closed down. So, but when I can see people in person again, I will. And for now, I'm doing a lot of my classes and consultations, the facilitation sessions, all via Zoom or Skype online.
Yeah, cool. I think we all are, aren't we, right now? Some countries have opened up where there are access facilitators, but we're not at that stage yet here in England and Wales. So we will carry on, and it will all come together as it's meant to. So your favourite tool of access before we go? Do you have a favourite? I know it's hard because there's like thousands. There are so many to choose from, but if there was one that you're aware of that you have, like, it's almost like I have one that runs in the background of my life all the time. So do you have one?
Well, there's no. I can't choose one. That's not fair. I've probably got three, and one of them isn't actually a tool. So the three that work together predominantly for me are ask a question. So whatever's going on, what question can I ask here? You know, what contribution can I be? Whatever the question is, ask a question. And to choose in 10-second increments. So I can ask a question and then I can change my mind, which leads me really nicely to the third one, is that you are never wrong. You are never wrong. It was a choice. And what did you learn from it? And now you can make a different choice. You are never wrong. You are never wrong. So, and I think I functioned before Access Consciousness so much of my life making myself wrong because I asked questions, because I kept changing my mind every 10 seconds. and now I know I can still do that and I'm not wrong, it opens up so much more that's
Yeah,
possible.
it's amazing, isn't it, when you look at what you've been told is a wrongness of you, and
Mm-hmm.
actually what if that's your strongness and your capacity and your potency to actually change way more in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love it. My background one is 10-second increments.
Mm-hmm.
What's required in this 10 seconds? That's my, it used to be what's right about this I'm not getting, because I was always wrong. I always made myself wrong for everything. It was just this constant stress and anxiety that was there in my world. But 10-second increments was like, I like this. In this 10 seconds, what shall I do now? And sometimes it's just stop. Am I breathing? I'll just check.
Yeah.
Am I doing this correctly? Oh, because I discovered that I had something called frozen breathing. I would hold my breath and not even know I was doing it. So of course
Children
that,
do that.
yeah, that would, I mean, I didn't pass out or anything. That never happened. But it was that whole, that was then stressing my body. And that was just getting worse. And it was just a book that someone recommended on breathing, a yogic book. And I just found myself there. And it's like, oh, I did not know this was a thing, but I knew that was me. So
Mm-hmm.
then I had to work on every now and then, but just before access. So then when access came along and it was still happening, it's like, okay, in this 10 seconds, I need to breathe. It helps, doesn't it? I've chosen to be here. So it does help to breathe.
It does. It does.
So, Theresa, we are at the end of the show. Thank you so very much. It's just lovely to connect with you like this, to have this time with you. And I'm so glad that you're well and everything has turned out for the very best. Yeah, I look forward to being with you in person at some point somewhere in the world. Who knows where that might be. And thank you so very much for being here. And everyone who's listening today, thank you too. Stay safe, everyone. Bye for now, Theresa.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone. Thank you. Stay tuned to Calon FM. Bye.